Okay, so you have two choices, a choice to make right now. We can do like we did when we connected all of these, and we could go ahead and tape this down here where the curved edges are. So there's some curved edges. We could go ahead and tape this down and stitch it. And there'll be a dye line for that, or a tack down line for that. So we'll just tape this stitch line onto this dye line and make sure that it's out of the way of this stitching, and tape that in place and tack it down. Or I'm going to do something different for this one, and I'm actually going to attach it at the end before we put the back on. So I'm going to just go ahead and cover this with felt and stitch the lines like this that are going to be on this design here. Okay, so I'm just going to tape this down here. Make sure everything is covered sufficiently. There we go. Now we're ready to stitch the dye lines for the straps. Okay, so now we stitched the dye lines for the straps. Now we're just going to put the fabric for those over the dye lines and tape them in place. Okay, so now we're just going to stitch the tack down for the straps. Okay, so I have trimmed the straps close to the tack down line and left them long on the ends. And so now we're going to stitch the motif on the front or top of the suitcase. So we'll go ahead and start that. It's going to have several colors to it, so just stitch out all the leaves and all the flowers, all the stems, and then there'll be some circles where we will attach some 3D flowers to it. Okay, we've stitched the leaves and all the flowers and stuff that are going to be embroidered on the front of the suitcase, and now we're just going to stitch some placement circles for the attachment of the flowers. And those are 3D flowers, not just regular embroidery flowers. So we're going to stitch some circles, and then the flowers we made in the first hooping are going to be tacked on here on the hoop, and it'll be 3D. Okay, so this is how the flowers are going to be arranged on the front. You have a larger circle and a smaller circle, so the larger flower is going to get tacked down here, and then that will stitch, and then we'll have a chance to insert the second flower. So in order to get these aligned, you want to take a straight pin, stick it in the middle of your flower circle, and then stick that in the middle of your circle on the hoop like this. Slide the flower down and then release the pin, and then you'll tape that in place. Okay, now we're just going to stitch the circle part of the flower, and that will tack the 3D flower to the front of the suitcase. Okay, and I went ahead and I've attached the second flower, taped it to the surface of the suitcase with a straight pin in the center of the circle, aligning it, and it should stitch without catching on this other flower because the circle is going to be a lot smaller, so it should be fine. You shouldn't have to tape this flower out of the way. Alright, now we're just going to stitch the circle for the second flower. Alright, so now that the flowers are attached, we're going to take our Velcro closure, and it's going to go Velcro side down. And what we're going to do is, I'm just going to slide this under here. We're going to flip it over to the reverse side, and there's a little die line here right there, and we're just going to align those just like that. And then I'm going to flip it back over to the front, and looks like it moved. You can also just lift up the edge here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just putting the line that's on there. There's a line on this that goes this way, and I'm going to align it to that die line, and then I'm going to tape this in place. Just like that. Okay, now it's not going anywhere. Okay, so on the back side of the hoop, we have a lot of different lines here. Do you see the curved, rounded edges here? Okay, so that's important. That's the outside edge. So if you just follow that around, this is the outside lip of your, like your lid that forms the lid to the suitcase. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of our Pellon stabilizer, and then we're going to tape it inside the die line here to give our suitcase some stability. So tape this in place so it doesn't move, because we are on the back side of the hoop, and on my 10 needle machine I don't have a table or a surface to hold this up, so that's why I have to tape so much. So I'm just going to tape this down really well. Okay, so now this is within the center box here. These lines here were for connecting the straps on the front of the suitcase. So now that we have this down, now we need to take our half completed suitcase here, and with the heart facing up, we're just going to flip it all the way over, and we're going to attach this box right here, this edge, to, and I'll probably go back and put an angle on this when I do the final files, so it's like not completely straight, to make that a little easier for you. And you just want to align it with the edge, this line that goes across here. You want to put this line on that edge, and you don't want it to go past these two corners. So, and if you feel more comfortable attaching this with hot glue or something after the fact, and this is just too much for you, that's fine too. So I'm just going to tape this very well to the underside of my hoop, because I don't want it to move. Taping it. Just like this. Okay, and then the final thing that I'm going to go ahead and put a very long piece of tape like this, so that this is held down. And when in doubt, use more tape. It's not going to hurt anything. Alright, so now that's very secure. Now we're going to take the piece, the topper, or the inside piece, and we're just going, oh, I forgot one more thing here. One more thing. We need the little pieces of stabilizer to go in the edges. So you're going to take all these little pieces, and you are going to tape them inside the die line, just like this, so that those don't move. That just gives your lid to your suitcase some stability. Okay, so we got that one down. Let's go ahead and get this side down. Like so. And any tape that gets sewn into this, it's fine. It'll never be seen again. It's permanently sewed into the interior. Okay, and then this piece here, we're just going to center it. I'm actually going to recut this because it's not very straight. So, okay. That should fit. Okay. So I'm just going to take this in place as well. Remember, this is the lid to our suitcase, so it also needs stabilizer. So don't be like Becca and forget to add those pieces. And it should look like this when you're done. So you have your middle piece of stiffener. You have it going around all 3 edges. Then we're going to lay this over the hoop, or this dotted line. Okay, and then this is in place. I can see that it's aligned properly. And now the final thing, after all of this pellon is taped down and our suitcase piece is taped down, which if you don't like doing this, don't do this part, and then you can just hot glue it at the end like we're going to do with the sides. So now we're just going to take this over everything and make sure that everything gets covered. Okay, now everything is taped. I'm going to support this as I take it to the embroidery machine, because I have a 10 needle machine. I don't have a table or a surface that this sits on. So I'm going to be holding this up while it's doing the final tack down line. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, we're just going to stitch the final tack down for the top of the suitcase. Alright, now we're just going to trim around this like an applique on both the top side and the bottom side, being careful not to cut this tab or cut the bottom of our suitcase here. So that's why we're going to trim each, the fabrics and stuff that are on the top of the hoop. We're going to trim those separate from the stuff on the bottom, and then we'll be ready to do the final things. Okay. So this is what we were trimming. So I trimmed away the stabilizer and I trimmed all around. I used scissors along these edges, but then when I got to here, I treated it like an applique and cut across. I cut across this like an applique so I wouldn't cut the bottom of the suitcase. Cut with scissors and just removed all the clear stabilizer. And then here's the back side, and I cut along here with applique scissors and just cut it like an applique so that I wouldn't cut this because it's connected here. And so now all that's left to do is we are going to glue this together. And so we're going to use hot glue, and we are going to attach the sides. Alright, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to hot glue these tabs on the pink side to each side of these. So probably the best way to do this is going to be to go ahead and get it into position. I'm just going to pin this side over here. I'm not going to glue it yet. I'm just going to put a pin in it just to hold it up a little bit. And now we're just going to come in here and put some hot glue. just going to turn it up like this. Seems to be a good way. Just apply pressure to get the glue to set.